Hi, my name is Jesse Metzger, and today I'm going to be talking to you about FedEx Corporation for the BML 321 case study. First of all, I'd like to give you a little background about FedEx. I'm actually an employee of FedEx Express, and for me this was a very unique opportunity to kind of get a closer look at the company I work for and how it started and kind of what direction it's headed in. It was started by Frederick Smith in 1973, and it actually began for him even before that. When he was in college, he went to Yale University, and he was writing a term paper about the current problems at that time um, with the logistical world. And he outlined in his term paper some of the problems, more particularly that they were delivering packages via passenger routes for airlines, and he thought it made more sense to have your own routes. Um, so basically, after that, he uh, bought a share in an aviation company, and a few years later, the first night of Federal Express at the time, they delivered 186 packages from 14 different airplanes. And things have changed since then. Now he has a fleet of 652 aircraft and around 100,000 vehicles. Today they deliver about 9 million packages worldwide, and that's every single day. Also, they changed the name from Federal Express to FedEx. It just made more sense. It sounded easier and uh, went along, especially as they kind of expanded and were merging with and acquiring other companies. And I've listed some of them at the bottom there. Express was kind of the original hub, and ground was purchased for its ground network, hence the name. Freight was purchased because they needed bigger trucks, semis, to haul some of the bigger pallets and things around. And then Office was purchased from Kinko's and later changed to just FedEx Office. Looking at the financial statements, I just want to point out that FedEx was the first company in U.S. history to reach the $1 billion revenue, um, and that was within their first 10-year period. And that is done without any mergers or acquisitions. So for them to do that on their own, that was an incredible feat to be the first company to ever do that in the United States. Looking at the free cash flow for FedEx, it is $1.019 billion, and that is as current as 2015 that I found that. And just a reminder, free cash flow is what allows a company to pursue opportunities that enhance the shareholder wealth, because it's looking at actual money, it's looking at actual financial figures. People argue that it has more value than the PE ratio. Another ratio is the current ratio, which is 1.84%. The quick ratio is 1.75%, and the cash ratio is 0.63%. And finally, we have the profitability gross margin, which is at 18.03%. The stock performance for Federal Express is, its current share right now is listed at 161.03, and I've actually been checking that every day for the past few days, updating this PowerPoint because I wanted it to be as up to date as possible. Its stock price has steadily increased since it was conceived, and the highest that it ever got was $182.24, which was earlier this year in June. And like I said, it's been steadily increasing. It shows pretty strong strength after it dipped down in 2009, and it dropped as low as $44, and that was after being up around $120. So they've come over some hard times, but like I was saying earlier, that price to earnings ratio, that's at 40.9%, and people argue that the free cash flow is better to look at a more accurate picture of a company, but we look at all these different ratios and percentages and facts to just get as much information about that company. Cost of capital and the intrinsic value for FedEx. Currently, they have $7.26 billion in debt, um, but they do have $15.3 billion in equity, which is great because I tend to think that equity is better to use for new projects or growth rather than debt. And their debt to equity ratio is 0.47%. And their total capital is 22.56 billion, which we get just from adding the debt and the equity together. And like I was saying earlier, I think equity has proven to be, for FedEx at least, the better option as far as funding new growth and increasing shareholder wealth. The dividend policy of FedEx, they do pay dividends, and right now that rate is at 0.25%. In 2013, they offered a 32 million share repurchase. And looking at the other competitors of FedEx, UPS and DHL, they both offer dividends as well. And cash management and planning. Right now, the CCC, or that cash conversion cycle for FedEx, is 46.7 days. And if you remember, we got that by taking the inventory conversion period, adding that to the average collection period, and then subtracting the payables deferred period. And that's how we get that number, which is more or less a measure of how long it takes for a company to turn their resources into a cash flow. So it's basically just showing the efficiency of the company. And also just looking at the fact that they have a fleet of 652 airplanes. I kind of brought that out because that's very impressive to me that that's by far their most expensive asset, with their most expensive planes costing $269 million. That's just to purchase them. For some older planes, it can cost about $5 million just to refurbish them and make them ready for the cargo flights that they go on. So it's a good snapshot of the kind of capital and the money that they spend on their assets, and the plans that they have in the future. Speaking of plans for the future, FedEx has just purchased TNT, which is a large company, logistical company based in Europe, and they do a lot there. And FedEx doesn't have a very good presence in Europe, so they purchased them for $4.8 billion, and that deal will finish up in 2016, but for now that definitely shows signs of future planning and growth. So in conclusion, FedEx has definitely shown consistently rising stock prices over its 42-year existence. It maintains the largest aircraft fleet and offers the fastest overnight service. I thought it was very interesting. I had heard from one of my managers that during the hours of midnight and 4 a.m., the main hub in Memphis, Tennessee is the busiest airport on Earth. So that's impressive to know that it has airplanes landing and taking off every 28 seconds. So, I mean, to deal with such bulk is truly an incredible feat. And, we were supposed to discuss whether or not we would be interested in purchasing stock in a company like this. And I actually believe that I would like to. Looking at the trends of the stock, I think that's a very good indicator of their health and their continuing success. And when I see that they're merging with TNT, it shows that they're expanding their international footprint, and that overall shows that the company has strong signs that they're moving forward, building, and I like the fact that they use their equity to fund their growth. They offer dividends, which is a good incentive for being a shareholder, and overall I think it's a great company. But then again, as an employee, I probably am a little biased. But this was a very interesting and eye-opening project, and I hope that you guys were able to learn a little bit something from it, and hopefully I can learn something from you, and if you have any questions, just let me know. But thank you very much, and it was a pleasure being in this class.